Hello and welcome to Catholic Unscripted. I'm Catherine Bennett.
I'm Mark Lambert.
Evan Ashington.
Well, the Pope has been speaking on 60 Minutes, hasn't he? And has been asked a number of things, and one of which was whether young Catholic girls growing up now can ever look forward to a time when they can become deacons and priests. What did he say, Mark? Did we get some clarity here on this?
Yeah, we did. He just very bluntly said no. And then he went on to waffle a bit. But that basically is the clip that sort of went out across social media. And everyone that I saw was celebrating the clarity. If you dig a bit deeper, of course, it's not really clarity. And what he went on to waffle on about then was that he was sort of saying that there won't be a religious order. There won't be religious orders for women, but there might be a way for them to be deaconesses, like called deaconesses. But I mean, it's the usual. What on earth is just introducing confusion? And if he never meant to have, if he's been clear on this, let's not forget the church has pronounced on this several times. Pope John Paul II was probably the most clear on the matter, saying that the church hasn't got the authority to declare. To sort of change the fact that men are the only ones who are ordained to the priesthood, to the trifold holy orders. Well, why on earth has he's opened all these commissions into the diaconate? The first one said no, so then he started another one, and it's just the usual thing with him. It's all about confusion. But it was good to hear him actually say, we're seeing that thing where he does like to cause loads of trouble, and then he sort of goes in the opposite direction, and here he's doing that again. To me, it's just terrible leadership, as among other things.
Yeah, what did you make of the 60 Minutes interview, Gavin?
I didn't see it, but I think Mark's right. I heard the clip of him saying no. I spread it because I thought it was such a relief. I knew it didn't tell the whole truth, but I was so grateful for the way in which, for the moment, it looked like he was exercising papal leadership, that I spread it anyway as a kind of piece of balm. I realized from the commentary that he was going on to prevaricate and to make a whole series of exceptions, and I think, well, it depends whether you use psychological or spiritual language. It's a spirit of chaos and ambiguity. So of course he would do that, but perhaps it was political too, in terms of trying to throw a sop to some of the Germans. I think we just have to be very grateful that his short answer was no, and leave it there and expect the rest, and then just pray for a pope who'll be a Catholic when he goes.
And what comments did he make about fiducia supplicans, Mark?
So he was asked then again about blessing, gay couples, and he said, he really rode back on it, and he said, no, that's not what I meant to do. And then he sort of tried to do the thing about everyone, we have to bless everyone, and but as we said when we discussed that document, I think we said it really well when we did that. Anyone who came up for a blessing to a priest at any point is not going to be denied that blessing. So what is the provision that this document is making then? If that is something, everyone knows that. Any priest that you ask or anyone would say, if someone went up after Mass for a blessing, said, Father, can you bless me? They would get a blessing. So what on earth was this document about? And, we know when we look at it's very carefully worded in that it, first of all, goes along with church teaching. It very clearly defines what the church teaches in terms of, what is a marriage, and so it gives the church definition, the doctrinal definition, and then it goes on to sort of contradict it and give an alternative view on things. And it's this mess that is just so typical of Pope Francis. And I keep coming back. I think I might have put it on Twitter this morning, that saying that he said to World Youth Day, Hagon Loy, make a mess. Like you could make that his papal motto, really, couldn't you? He certainly has been very proficient at it. And this is just more of the same. I just think, like Gavin said, that we were all trying to focus on the positives of the things that he said in this interview. But that, how will they stand up in the future? No one believes him. And a lot of the discussions that went on afterwards were around the fact that, he says yes now, let's wait. Does that mean that we're going to see a document in 3 or 4 months' time to the contrary of what he says? I mean, if you look at the ordination of women things, it's an excommunicable offence in canon law. And as recently as 2021, this was reinstated. So, it just doesn't make nothing that he says. You can't rely on anything he says, unfortunately, which makes it very difficult considering that he's the successor of Peter.
Yes. Gavin, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Mark's handled it very well.
And we have a headline that perhaps nobody thought they'd see, which is Catholic Diocese supports monk who came out as a tranny. So what is this? Do we need to clarify what this story is? This is a story that's circling around on social media of a Catholic monk who was born a woman and is a hermit, or living in a cave. No,
I don't think so. Should we let Gavin have a bash at it?
Come on, Gavin, bash the tranny.
I don't know anything about it.
Oh, he's great, isn't he? Let's get him on again.
Well, so I think everyone was saying that he was a priest to start off with, and that was, so it sort of makes a mockery of the whole thing. But he's not. He's a hermit. I don't even know that he's a monk in orders. So he's just like a strange bloke who lives on his own in the diocese and wears a habit, and it's almost in direct contradiction to what it means to be a hermit. Is the fact that he's come out on social media and said that he's actually a trans something. I can't even say it because he's a man who was born, so he's biologically a woman and who's a man or something like that. And I could look up the definition and educate myself with it, but I just don't care about all of that stuff. So that's why I'm being so vague about it. And I just think that goes in contradiction. The fact that he's come out, the ascetic life is meant to be a life of silence, prayer, and contemplation. And he's come out and said,
saying she, shouldn't we?
Or whatever, yeah. Well, sorry,
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Then, but that. What's it all about? Drawing attention to yourself and saying, we've got to deal with it and all this sort of. It's the usual absolute nonsense. And how's that leading anyone to Christ? And it does. It's all just narcissistic rubbish, isn't it?
He says, you've got to deal with us because God has called us into this church. It's not your church to kick us out of. This is God's church. And God has called us and engrafted us into it.
It's facile nonsense, isn't it? God calls us to conversion. That's the call. Yeah. And of course, everyone's welcome in the church. But, you have to conform yourself to Christ, not come in and sort of change everything.
But this is exactly the trick they're playing all the time in Anglicanism. When they use the word God, it's the wrong God. It's the God of this world. It's the God of gender identity. It's the God of please yourself. It's the God of moral blackmail. And the God of moral blackmail is not the Holy Spirit. So we should call it out. The problem is we have words like God and love. They're more complex than they seem at first sight. People use them as opportunities to blackmail, and we don't accept it.
Yep. And then in other news, this week, Bishop McKinney in Nottingham has issued a piece of guidance for Catholic schools called Precious in My Sight. This was quite welcome, but surprisingly so from Bishop McKinney, wasn't it, Mark?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is give him a big round of applause and say thank you very, very much, because it is a carefully written document to be within the law. So, I mean, that's obvious that it's very carefully written while affirming the Catholic faith. So it's really important, I think, at this time. It's very interesting. So I wrote a piece about it, which is on our website for members. You can, and in that, I won't give too many spoilers, but it is quite interesting that McKinney has been very vocal on this issue up until now, but on the other side of the argument. And now it's a real shock that he's come out unilaterally. So the bishop's document, as we said, was pretty poor. It was, pretty in the middle. And then we found out afterwards that this was because basically they'd been trying to write it for 2 years and none of them could agree on what they should write. I mean, it's so obvious. Perhaps we could do a course for you, bishops. We'll come and do a very, for a very reasonable price. We can come and we can teach you this amazing thing called the Catholic faith, and how we can discern what the truth is, based on the revelation of God. I'm sure you'd find it really useful in your job leading the Catholic Church in the UK. But anyway, so that was the document. It was pretty rubbish, but, something's better than nothing, I think, was basically our attitude. And this document from McKinney that is much stronger. It bans pride, it bans pronouns, and gives a really good explanation, a fairly good explanation for, sexual differentiation and stuff like that. So it's very welcome.
Yeah, it's really welcome, and thank you, Bishop McKinney. But you said it was a slight change in tone. Why do you think that was? Where has that come from?
Well, it's very interesting, and I wonder if he's at odds with some of his own canons about this. I did do quite a bit of digging, and all of that information is on the blog for members, so they can check it out. And if you're interested in that information, obviously we have to try and sort of generate some income for the stuff, that the time and effort that we put into producing the stuff. So that's why we put that for members only. So please do consider taking out a membership, and you get all that extra information at your disposal.
Yeah, do please consider that if you haven't already. What we're trying to do is have a situation in which you feel as members that what you're able to contribute monthly that helps us, that you are getting something that you value in return. So not all our blogs are at membership level, but the odd one here and there we'll put on for members only, and there are also videos for members only. So we're trying to balance that and offer you something that we feel is good value for money, and that we hope you feel is too, which enables us to sustain what we do. What do you think about this, Gavin, this Precious in My Sight that's come out of Nottingham Diocese, a very welcome document for Catholic schools?
I think that I hope it will affect other dioceses and other bishops and other diocesan education committees, and that it's such a change in direction and it's so unusual and going against the grain that perhaps it will attract some people to follow it. And I have no idea what the political situation is in the Catholic Education Service, but I think people will be very surprised. It'll be interesting to see whether it has that catalytic effect.
It's definitely very much needed. I know from working in Catholic schools for a long time and knowing many Catholic leaders that often they didn't know how to respond to this sort of wave of transgenderism that suddenly came at them, and this LGBT ideology that seemed to be this huge pressure and force coming into schools, into all schools, and lobby groups like Stonewall and No Outsiders who were just absolutely, washing schools with all this stuff and doing insets and running. They had a lot of money behind them. And then I think Catholic leaders didn't know how to respond. And I heard a number say, look, even if we wanted to do this or act like this, we don't feel like the bishop would support us. And that's a horrible position to be in as a Catholic leader in an educational establishment. So this at least, I think, gives some hope to them that they feel they've got the support. And because you don't want to feel like you're just acting unilaterally. You, Mary, or you, Joe, or you, Simon, these heads, you're the ones who have said no and haven't gone along with this. You want to be able to say, well, I can rely on the authority of the church and to support me and to back me up. So I think it's very, very welcome. But it does seem to be that the CAS review, the CAS report, emboldened the bishops to be able to say this. And of course, the worrying thing is that just a few weeks away, we have a general election, and you do fear that there might be some rolling back of some of these good moves towards recognising that we've run on a bit too far with gender ideology, rather than recognising that it is something that young people need help with and shouldn't be normalised or encouraged. But that could all be out the window, couldn't it, in a few weeks?
I think that's what worries me, really, is that we've got these brilliant new proposals from Gillian Keegan coming on the back of the CAS review, and perhaps that has emboldened the bishops to speak out, which is it's a good thing for all of us, but it's deeply wounding for me. I find it deeply disappointing because what have they come out and done? Affirmed Catholic truth. Why didn't they do that a decade ago? We've got the same result here now. If they'd done it a decade ago, yeah, they would have taken more flack for it if the CAS review hadn't been done or whatever. But at the same time, the truth doesn't change, and all they've done is make themselves look, ridiculous and weak. And that's what I think the document from the CBEW actually does. The document that the Bishops' Conference released, it just looks ridiculous. And McKinney's document makes it look even more ridiculous because it doesn't actually go as far as addressing the stuff that we need it to address. So I would suggest, because of the political difficulties that we've got, everyone, all of our readers, write to Bishop McKinney and say, thank you, this is a great document. I would also encourage you to write to your own bishop and ask respectfully if or perhaps even when your diocese will adopt these guidelines, McKinney's guidelines, and put them in place for your own diocese.
Yeah, and it's nice to be able to thank the bishops and to say we need your leadership and thank you for being good shepherds. We're incredibly grateful for that. Any closing remarks on that, Gavin? Okay, I think your dinner might be ready. Well, thanks for watching. Do please visit the website catholicunscripted.com and pick up a membership if you haven't already. It's a small thing for you, but it makes a huge difference to us, and it really does help us to sustain and to grow and to offer more in terms of what we're doing. But thank you, and also keep up the prayers as we do for you. But for now, I'm Catherine Bennett.
I'm Mark Lambert.
I'm Gavin Ashenden.